Hi, my name is Mark Bernard. I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I want to talk about specifically the historical parallels between the United States 1775, we'll call it America, and Ukraine 2025, and forward for each country. Uncanny historical parallels, not only in strategic and tactical action, geopolitical action, but also in its current trend of thought. Before I get into that, I want to talk about a little about me. I mean, Ben Franklin was born in Philadelphia. He was born in Boston, and he lived in Philadelphia. I was born in Philadelphia on American holiday and lived in Boston. I actually lived on Hancock Street, and that's why I'm here. I have this nice brick stone walls, reminds me of my apartment in Hancock Street in Boston, Beacon Hill, reminiscent. John Hancock used to live in my building. What does that have to do with Ukraine and Russia today? Everything. Because my claim is Russia, they skipped the Enlightenment, they skipped the Renaissance for various historical reasons, but Ukraine did not. And before I get into strategy and tactics, I want to talk about the intellectual parallels between the founding fathers of the United States of America and the Ukrainian historical figures. So if you are against or do not support, because remember, neutrality is on the side of the aggressor. If you do not support Ukraine full-heartedly, I question if you would have supported America in 1776, 1775. Maybe you would have been a Tory. Okay? You have to ask yourself that. Let's take a look at these intellectual foundations of Ukraine and the U.S. Skovoroda. I'm saying these names, even though I'm a Polish speaker and I actually am ethnically Ukrainian, I'm saying some of these names wrong. Skovoroda. He was the Ben Franklin of Ukraine. If you look at his ideas, his writings, they paralleled Benjamin Franklin. You go against somebody like that, then you say you don't like Benjamin Franklin. Kotlevsky. He was the Thomas Paine of Ukraine. If you don't like the ideas of the common sense of Thomas Paine, then you wouldn't like the ideas of Kotlevsky. Shevchenko. Thomas Jefferson. If you are against Ukraine and the ideas of Shevchenko, you would be against Thomas Jefferson's Constitution and eventually the Declaration of Independence, etc. You might as well just be bold and state it publicly. I am against the Constitution because this is what Ukraine is fighting for. Coolidge, Adams, Franco, Madison. The historical parallels are uncanny if you put these writings side by side. And that's what happens. There's an expression, ideas are in the air, in the Enlightenment. You have parallel ideas in Ukraine and the U.S. going on simultaneously or near simultaneously. Leslie Ukraina and Abigail Adams, that's a woman there. Shevchenko, that could be John Hancock or Samuel Adams. Donstov, Thomas Paine, could even be Hamilton. Uncanny historical parallels of writers of the Enlightenment, of Ukraine, and the founding fathers of the United States of America. If you don't support Ukraine full-heartedly, I question if you would have been a Tory. So let's look at this more in depth. Okay, let's talk about the cultures, what each one is fighting for. Now, I love England. I love the UK. Great country, great friends, great allies. I have family and friends that live there. But in 1775, 1776, they weren't exactly the good guys. Okay, they weren't exactly the bad guys in the same sense that Russia is, but it's monarchy and despotism versus the idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What is Ukraine fighting for? Ukrainians just want to be. They want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So if you're against or don't support that, I question if you would support the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Declaration of Independence. And I don't think any other document in the whole world, written in formal, has life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in it than the American. And we want to promote the common good in America. And these are divine rights in our historical documents. And that's what the Ukrainians want. They just want to be left alone, to be able to just get bored and do great things or not do great things. It doesn't matter. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, so we've got other ideas. The languages. Ukraine is, in England, they spoke English. In Russia, they want you to speak Russian. England had colonies where they spoke other languages. Russia has colonies which they speak other languages. But in Ukraine, you have a diversity. You do have Ukrainian, you do have Russian. You actually have even Polish in some areas, Romanian in some areas, and other Tatar, Crimean Tatar in some areas. But these are all voluntary areas, okay? This is parallel, that there was no quote-unquote branded language that they're just pushing through propaganda like the Russians are and the English did. What about religion? There's this orthodoxy led by an Orthodox atheist, Cyril, in Moscow, because he's not a believer and neither is the Tsar. And there's the English. They were much more Church of England. They were religious, but it was less like the state religion. Where in America, you could be a Quaker, you could be a Catholic, you could be indigenous religions, right? We don't care, and Ukrainians don't care. You could, my parents were married in the Ukrainian Catholic Church. You could be Protestant. You could be anything you want in Ukraine. I can't say, if you ever saw the movie, the spoof on Eurovision, they had a funny Russian dancer in there, and he made some comments. You can't be anybody you want in Russia. And we all know that's true. So we've got religion paralleling culturally. We've got language paralleling culturally, America and Ukraine. We've got the goals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We've got this enlightenment. But economically, the Ukrainians stand for this free market. Russia, and at the time, England stood for mercantilism, extract minerals and gold and wealth. Again, I've recanted this story near me when I lived in Connecticut. In this Granby, Connecticut, was a copper mine in which the English would take the copper, smelt it all the way in England, and then resell it. It was called Old Newgate Prison. You can check it out. That is mercantilism, and that is super inefficient because the Americans could have just smelted it in Connecticut and then shipped it around. But they were required by England, the mercantilists, to extract that rare earth mineral, send it to England, and then process it. Ukraine represents the idea of freedom, free movement of labor and capital. And I can confirm that. Many Ukrainians living here, just the ideas that the Ukrainian people grew up with these Enlightenment ideas, and it's not in the collective unconsciousness of the Russians. It's just simply not there. It is a void where it should be. And I'm sorry, because I know there's a lot of good ones out there. Now, what about the strategy and tactics? The Americans relied on a lot of those guerrilla tactics, hide behind the walls and the trees. The British marched in their red uniforms, kind of in a wave attack, we can say, analogous to what the Russians do. And the Ukrainians use this innovative drone technology and tactics like the Americans did. I highly recommend the show Washington Spies and all the innovative things that the Americans were doing. It's just an over-the-top if you're into revolutionary history. And you could say that type of ingenuity is what strikes me about the Ukrainians. When I refer to Yankee ingenuity, I don't think I really explain the definition, where some people go for large amounts of rare earth or gold. The Americans were content on saying, this is what we have. And Yankee ingenuity, the hallmark of that was making do with what you have. If life gives you lemons, make lemonade, okay? And that is the strategy and tactics in the Ukrainian, strategy for this geopolitical conflict. The French supported the Ukrainians. The French supported the Americans. You got to remember Cornwallis surrendered because the French fleet came in. Okay, that was the surrender of the British because of the French. See who the French side for in this conflict. And you know that this multinational support was very important for the birth of a nation, and that was America, and it is for this Ukrainian revolution. It was a large empire that people thought was invincible, England, versus a large empire, which they claimed to be invincible, Russia, against the tiny, ragtag Americans. And who won? And I don't want to say ragtag about the Ukrainians, but they're making do with what they have, and they're moving mountains. Lot of foreigners, Polish patriots fought on the side, Kosciuszko fought on the side of America, and many others, Lafayette. And the same thing is happening, international patriots, liberty-loving people fighting on the side of Ukraine. And that's true. Maybe you could say that the North Koreans are kind of like the German Hessian mercenaries. I don't know if I want to go through that far parallel. And forgive me, our allies today. It was a history that was, 250 years ago. Too many grassroots logistics. Ukraine relies on this grassroots logistics. Even here in Poland, I know there's even these American guys, they have this beat-up old station wagon, and they're driving stuff over to Ukraine. Yes, they have this idea that we as a society are going to pull together. And that's what the Americans did in 1775, 1776, really. Women played an integral role in the American Revolution on the American side, and they play an integral role in Ukraine's fight for independence and freedom. King George III, leader of the King of England during the time, he eventually went crazy. The Tsar of Russia currently, he's eventually going crazy. You remember, mark me on this. Mark my words, okay? Just remember I said that, King George III and the Tsar of Russia. I don't want to leave on that note. I have just too many other ideas here. But my main point, I don't want to get lost in the details, is America at the birth and fighting for its independence against a despotic country, larger and more powerful, with the red colors, mind you, the red and white, and I even think they had blue in that colors, that despotic country, against the Russian red and white and blue colors, trying to impose their language, their religion, their economic system of mercantilism. And Ukraine and America had these great Enlightenment thinkers guiding and into the consciousness. Like I said, Skovoroda was like the Ben Franklin. Shevchenko was Thomas Jefferson. You can research these guys I've mentioned, look them up, and create historical parallels how you see that this is what feeds the Ukrainian mind, this love for freedom, for God and country and freedom. And as an American, I can relate to that because that is the collective unconsciousness of America, the good America. Light wins over darkness. Ukraine will win decisively. And we'll look back on these years as a pivotal moment, and historians can write this and place this together. It would be a good idea for a thesis, even a doctoral thesis, of paralleling the historical ideas of these writers in Ukraine's fight for freedom. My name is Mark Bernot. I'm a monetary economist. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.